Just a little.
My goodness. So Judge Engoron says that he wants this $350 million within 30 days. Now, I know that you're planning on appealing this, but you've still got to put up the full amount pending that appeal. Does Donald Trump have that kind of money sitting around?
Yes. I mean, he does. Of course, he has money. You know, he's a billionaire. We know that. And
well, looks like that may not have been the case, which I guess is not shocking given who delivered that message. I want to bring in Aaron Parnas, our legal expert. Always so great to be with you, Aaron. What is the news? It looks like Trump may be pinching pennies pretty soon.
Luke, this is like truly breaking news coming out of New York right now. So for some background, Donald Trump filed an emergency stay essentially with the appellate court in New York, saying that he could not afford to pay the full $454 million judgment currently against him. Remember, it's $355 million plus about $100 million in interest. Trump, in a filing this morning, said, we need to stay that monetary judgment and that he can't essentially pay it. He asked instead to put up $100 million in a bond instead of the full $454 so that he can appeal the judgment. And in that same filing, he said that if he were forced to have to put up the full 454, he would have to sell property to be able to satisfy the difference. So essentially, he admits that he can't afford the judgment from the Manhattan court, that he only has about $100 million in liquid cash, and that he's in a big pickle. So that's what happened this morning. But now the appellate court ruled very quickly in a matter of hours and essentially said, absolutely not. You're not entitled to that stay. And Donald Trump still has to pay the full 454, whether or not he wants to appeal. If he wants to appeal, it's a bond. If he doesn't want to appeal, he's got to give it up to the state of New York.
So he is going to be out of money in terms of cash on hand. He's already going to have to go to selling properties. And remind me, didn't he claim to have 400 million plus in cash in a deposition?
Yeah, he did. So he may very well have more cash. He just doesn't want to necessarily give it up for lifestyle reasons. Remember, he also has that $83 million judgment from the E. Jean Carroll case. Now, one important caveat in this appellate court's decision is that it did not stay the part of it did stay the part of the judgment that would have removed Trump from being a director of the Trump Organization, which allows him to continue to essentially apply for loans on behalf of the Trump Organization. And I wouldn't be surprised if he were to apply for loans in an effort to satisfy the $350 million difference. So we're going to see what happens.
Okay, and are the next steps here after this decision some process, or right now does he have to start selling and paying up?
Yeah, so here's what happens next. Trump has realistically 30 days from when the judgment was entered last week to officially appeal the decision. To appeal the decision, he has to put up the full $454 million. So if he wants to appeal, he's going to have to come up with $454 million in cash by, I believe it's mid-March, sometime in mid-March. So that's really the next steps. And in the meantime, interest is going to continue to accrue on that judgment. So it's only going to grow by another $110,000 per day or so. So it's really not looking good for Trump. If for whatever reason he's not able to get a loan, he doesn't have the cash, then yeah, he's going to have to start selling property in the next couple weeks to try to satisfy the judgment. Or he's going to just have to sell more Trump sneakers, whatever comes first.
And can he use donor money to, at least in part, pay off some of these things?
It's an interesting question. No, that would be a federal crime. He can't use donor money to satisfy personal.
So he might do it.
You never know. But no, he's not going to do that. He can't do that. I think the most likely outcome here is that he'll get a loan that he'll then have to repay at an extremely high interest rate or something. But honestly, we don't know. Remember, and if he can't satisfy the $454 million in the next 3 weeks or so, then Letitia James and the New York Attorney General's office, they can then go and try to force a sale of, for example, Trump Tower or another one of his properties that are in New York.
So that was something we talked about in a previous segment, Letitia James saying she's not opposed to and would seize Trump Tower if he wasn't paying up. What would that actually look like? I'm curious.
Yeah,
the process of seizing his properties.
It's a good question. You're not going to see Letitia James seize the property, knock down the doors, and take over Trump Tower overnight. That's not what would happen.
Rip down the letters.
It's not going to happen. What Trump Tower is worth hundreds of millions, if I believe over $1 billion. The judgment is $450 million. In a case like this, what you would see is you would have a partition sale of the property. The New York Attorney General's office would get X amount, 450 million or so, to satisfy the judgment. Then the remainder of the sale would go in cash to Trump, the Trump organization, whoever owns the property, essentially. So it's a long process. Letitia James could start that process in court, but it's not going to happen overnight or anything, and it's not going to turn into the Letitia James Tower or anything.
And one of the things I was thinking about, I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is going to hinder Trump in numerous ways, just in terms of his financial situation. Clearly, he wasn't wanting to use a bunch of his own cash on his presidential campaign or on his legal expenses, because we saw that reporting about $50 million of donor money was spent on Trump's legal fees. So going forward, can you see realistically a real financial issue becoming an obstacle for him in paying off the normal presidential expenses that are huge, the legal expenses, and these different judgments he has to pay?
Yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, Trump will likely find a way to pay this judgment because he has either assets, property valued more than $450 million. That likely won't end up being a problem in the long haul. But at the end of the day, if he becomes president, for example, this judgment's not going away. He can't just pardon himself in the state of New York. That's not how this works. This is going to be a headache that he is going to have to live with until he either satisfies the judgment or he passes away, one or the other. And I honestly would not be surprised to see Trump or the Trump organization file for bankruptcy as a result of this judgment. I mean, he's filed for bankruptcy before. Wouldn't be surprised to see him do it again.
Yeah, and even though he can technically do it, I do think just in terms of his ego and so much of his identity is wrapped up in these properties, having to sell that, I think, is him taking a blow to his ego. Aaron, where can people find you?
On all my social media platforms at Aaron Parnas.